Good morning, my magnificent ones. I just had to hit all the right buttons to make sure everything worked. It's Friday. Welcome to Tea with Sue. This is episode number 68, and our topic today is what's great about you. I'm Sue Paulson, your magnificence mentor. Oh, it's a beautiful day. I think we're finally getting spring here. The robins are chirping and singing their songs, and I feel a little bouncy in my step today, so that's great. Well, what's great about you? I'm reminded of an exercise I was given in my 20s that challenged me to write down 100 things that I liked about myself or even loved about myself. Well, that wasn't the way I was brought up. I was brought up to understand that you didn't toot your own horn, that even if you had a particular talent or skill or something was really good about you or attribute that was really good, you didn't talk about it because that would make you boastful, and that sense of pride would not be good for you. And well-meaning though that might have been, with the intention to keep us humble, I'm not sure it really served the purpose, because of course what you don't acknowledge typically doesn't exist. And if you never acknowledge what's great about you, what's wonderful about you, what's beautiful about you, what's the best thing about you, then you can't bask in the power that that can give you. So I've been interested in personal power for many years because I wanted to understand how it worked and what it meant, particularly to me, and whether or not it made a difference to other people if they found more of their own power. So, and this is where the whole focus that I have on magnificence comes in, that we forgot that we are all that, and it's big, but we have such little lives when we don't acknowledge what's great about us. So I've talked about this exercise a few times before in Tea with Sue, and it keeps popping up. Well, it must be popping up for a reason. It must be time for you to focus on what's great about you. I know, there's all kinds of things that you need to fix. You don't do this that well, or you have a challenge with that. I'm living in kind of a messy household right at the moment because I don't feel like cleaning it up. Well, that is a weakness of mine. I confess that that's something that if I fixed that, it would probably make the quality of my life a little better. But quite frankly, I don't want to fix it right now. So I've lived with this kind of clutter bug idea all of my life, and there are weeks when I'm super good at picking up after myself and putting things away, and I'm lots better, and I've downsized to the point where I don't have that much clutter anymore, so it does make it easier. But sometimes a person gets flat out tired, because when we only focus on our deficiencies, it kind of beats us down to the point where, and you've seen this in kids, where if they're told often enough that they're no good, that they don't measure up, that they're not good enough, on and on and on, pretty soon they feel defeated. And so they can't even believe in themselves in any way, because nobody else does either. So do yourself a favor. If you grew up in that environment where the focus was on, well, yeah, that's pretty good, but you have to be better. You know, you got 98% on a test. Well, how come you didn't get 100%? Whoa, 98% is pretty darn fine. And for some people who struggle with certain kinds of learning, 50% is pretty darn fine. I can remember my son struggling with a particular subject in school, and and he had some difficulties getting along with the teacher as well. Well, I was a little bit, I didn't know what to do. And so I talked to him about it, and then I went to the school and we tried a few things that weren't going to work the way I had hoped. And I, because I was concerned that the teacher was part of the problem and I didn't know how to handle that very well, I finally just said to my son, look, sweetie, we support you 100% in this. You just need to do the best you can to get through the rest of the year, and then you'll be done with that teacher, you'll be done with that school, and I promise you life will be better. And I said, all you need is 50% to get through that class, and so you don't fail it. And he knew that we were doing the best we could to support him in this. And we weren't that fussed about this mark because, you know, we didn't want him to have a failing mark, because then that would cause repercussions that wouldn't be good. But we just wanted him to pass. I didn't care if he got 100%. I was happy with 50%. Well, bless his heart, because we took the pressure off. He knew that we were behind him all the way, you know, even though our hands were a little bit tied in certain circumstances and we couldn't solve it for him. We gave him a way to deal with it so that there was the least amount of pressure possible. And you know what? He dived in and he did the work, and he ended up with his average for all of his subjects was like 79%. So it was such a huge change and a huge improvement from where he had been. And I was thrilled. I was tickled. And more than anything, I was so glad that he wouldn't be faced with that situation again. So it taught us all something, that persistence in the face of what wasn't working was going to be helpful. And he had other things that he was really good at. So just do the best you can there. Let's not worry about that. Then you can focus on where you are really strong and where you are really good. So there's times when I wish I had known about that strategy when I was a kid, and I had had that kind of support to get through some of the tougher things that I didn't want to do, that I wasn't that good at. But, oh, well, you have to get through this. And I did the best I could, and I kind of slogged and I managed, but it left me with kind of a sour taste in my mouth, because the things that I was really good at, I was really good at English. I had a little talent for art. I had a little talent for singing. All of those, I guess what they call liberal arts, I had some strength in there, and I had some natural talent. And as I developed those talents, they grew. And so, but that wasn't the focus. Oh, no, you're terrible in math and science, and you need to focus on that. Well, let me tell you, when somebody added a dollar sign to numbers, I got way more interested. And while I'll never remember all the formulas from algebra, because algebra to me was a huge mystery, I can tell you what a 40% discount is on a particular item in the store, because there's a dollar sign attached to that. So while I didn't have what I would call a talent for working with numbers, I could figure things out. And I was pretty proud of myself that was what I was better at than I ever imagined I would be, especially from school. So it's interesting that what we struggle with when we're younger can change and transform through different circumstances quite a bit when we're older. So we never want to fall victim to somebody's assessment of us when we're much younger, because with life experience and with different kinds of focus, we can make whatever improvements will help us get along in our day-to-day life, which then leaves more room to be able to go where we need to go. So if you read some of the information about Einstein and some of the brilliant people whose minds just were focused on creative endeavors in whether it was in science or in math or in building things. Lots of times they couldn't figure out how to find their socks in the morning, and someone else looked after that because they just did not, their heads were somewhere else. Well, does that mean they were failures? No, it meant that they were using their energy, their brain power, all of the God-given talents to focus on something that really mattered to them. So this is the focus that I think becomes important, to spend more time on looking at what's great about you. And it's interesting that if you actually ask, if you get up the courage or the nerve to ask your friends, your trusted friends, and maybe even some of your relatives, so what do you think's great about me? What do you think some of my skills, my talents, my skills, all of those sorts of things. What is it that you think is good about me? And you might be surprised at how much support you get and things that people notice that you never even considered was a strength. Now, here's the thing I like the best. I like the fact that when you see something you admire in someone else, you need to acknowledge that you have that in you as well, because you wouldn't recognize it if you look at someone and say, oh, they're so kind. Well, if you didn't have kindness in you, you would not know what that was. You couldn't put a word to it. So this is the beautiful thing. Other people mirror for us where we are in part, perhaps, and where we most want to be. Well, I want to be more kind. Well, then we look for people who kind of epitomize that level of kindness, or that level of strength, or that level of courage, or whatever that is, because we can go to school on how they do that. Well, how do you be more kind? How do you have more courage? How do you, all of those things? And so it's partly through the observation that we notice that attribute in them, and we honor it, and noticing it and acknowledging it and honoring it. It also honors it in ourselves, because we place some kind of a value on it. And when we place a value on what we really, really like, or that we feel is really great, then I think the value increases. So, and it increases for us too. So it helps us strive to add more of that. If that's what we like and we want more, well, we can figure out ways to add more than that. So it's hard to do it alone, because let's face it, if you're in a room that has totally blank walls, white walls, there's no contrast whatsoever, and you look around, all you see is white. So you can't figure out who you are in relation to the white. You might look at yourself and say, well, I'm not that wall, and I'm not the paint on the wall. But more than that, you don't really know. But you put another person in the room, and you start thinking about in what way are we the same? And in what way are we different? You start a conversation and you begin to understand, oh, this person thinks this way, and I either think that way, or no, I kind of think this way, or oh, we seem to be in agreement here on certain things. And then you start noticing, based on their actions, where some of their talents lie, where some of their skills come from, and so on. Well, it helps show us where we're at too in relation to that. So I think it's important that we're surrounded in our world today of everything that's wrong. And of course, the media can sell advertising and get more and more attention by putting explosive headlines and issues of the day that where things are very, very wrong. And they're great at pointing that out, no question. They'll focus on that because they want to catch us and drag us into that. Well, not that we don't want to be informed, and not that we don't want to have empathy for what's going on in the world that's not working, but such a big dose of it without the balance of, well, what's right in the world? Like, if your next door neighbor just did you a kindness, that's right in the world. And but did we pay as much attention to that as we did to the ain't it awful stuff that's coming on the news? And an overabundance of the doom and gloom, as my grandmother used to call it. She'd watch the news at 11 before she went to bed. She says, oh, I'll watch the doom and gloom before I go to bed. Going, why would you fill your head with that stuff just before you go to bed? Sleeping that's our most vulnerable time, when our minds are just open to all possibilities. And the last thing you looked at was how many murders there are in the world, or various atrocities here and there. Wow, that's hard on us. That's hard on our psyche, and I don't recommend that. So I don't have the news on my TV anymore. I tune in a little bit here and there, maybe throughout the day, but quite frankly, I'm more interested in the weather than I am in some of what's going on, because most of it I can't do anything about except bless the situation and shine some light and love on it and let it go. That's my contribution. And beyond that, I'm more interested in and focusing on what's right, what's good, what's positive about what's going on. I've been accused of being a Pollyanna. And of course, the stereotype of Pollyanna is that, oh, well, she's all sunshine and light. She's so optimistic, and nothing's ever wrong in her world. Well, if you go back in defense of the movie Pollyanna and the books Pollyanna did not have a great life. She grew up when she was young. She lost at different times both of her parents, grew up as an orphan now, of course, this is a fictional account, but I expect that this happens in lots of different families, and then went to live with an irascible aunt who couldn't say a good word about anybody, and life at her place was kind of miserable. And this woman had some financial resources, so she had staff. Well, the staff were miserable. And here's Pollyanna, who, despite the adversities that she went through, learned how to be grateful and to find the good things in life. She looked for the silver lining in the cloud, literally. It wasn't that there weren't black clouds, because there were. But she was taught by her dad, who was a minister, to look for the silver lining. And so she would. And sometimes she had to work really hard to find something good about a particularly nasty situation, but eventually she would. Well, because she shared this game with those around her, some of these grumpy servants and rather standoffish relations, it caught on. And they're a little bit bemused by it, and we're going, oh, this kid's crazy, what's going on here? But something about it caught their attention, and then they started to have a little smile when they found something glad. And eventually the ball got rolling, and the ball got bigger, and people were very engaged in this. Well, there was a particularly interesting power that came out of that as people grabbed onto this idea, and it built and it built and it built and it built, and it became a beautiful thing in the community. So that when some real adversity struck Pollyanna towards the end of the movie, she was surrounded by supporters to lift her up when she felt helpless to lift herself up. So those are the kinds of things that can come from focusing on the good and the great. And when other people notice that in us, we want to bask in it. We want to just take some comfort that somebody noticed and have this, when someone gives me a compliment, I have this little glow in, oh, how lovely of them to notice that. And it just makes me feel wonderful. And it makes me want to do more of the same if it's something that I can add to, so that I can have even more of that quality, then I do what I can to do that. It's a great reminder for me. So this week, I'd like you to focus on what's great about you. You know you can do this because you're that magnificent, right? And along with that, then play the game of focusing on what's great about everybody else around you, because there's something in everybody. You might need to dig a little bit for some people, but maybe it's their beautiful smile. Maybe it's the way they describe something. Maybe it's the fact that they bake these wonderful chocolate chip cookies. There's always something that's inherently great and beautiful in everyone. It's maybe just been buried, and maybe they've never been allowed to let it out very often, or let it shine. Well, you can facilitate that process. And when we do that for each other, then the power base that each of us has just grows. And so then when we're challenged with difficult situations, when we're in the thick of adversity, we can get through it. We can remember our power. We can remember that we're stronger than whatever it is that's in our way, or causing great disruption, or great sorrow, whatever that is. We come back to who we really are inside, which is so magnificent. So go take on the weekend, enjoy, while we have sunshine here. So I'm going to get out and enjoy that and look for a spring flower or two. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week. As always, if you're enjoying Tea with Sue, I invite you to subscribe to my channel or download my app, The Magnificence Mentor, a free download, and you'll find all my video content on the app. Until next time, take good care.